Hi everybody. So Tammy's, guess where Tammy is? She's shopping. Hopefully she doesn't shop for more than the 15 minutes it takes to do this video, otherwise I'm in trouble. All right, here we go. So someone's asking about twisted feet. They've got a puppy that was born with what they call club feet, or feet that are not pointing the right direction. What can we do about it? The answer is tape up those feet. I've got a couple of videos on taping feet, and one specifically talks about this. So what you do is, if you've got feet that are sticking out like this, you put some tape on those feet to pull the toes back in to where you want them. And if you get that done early, when they're born, first week, you'll find it corrects it really quickly. And I mean, I've had puppies where literally typically the back feet, I had one where the back feet were born backwards. I mean, it looked terrible. And you know, it took a little bit of time. You can't just yank them around one time. You've got to put pressure on them, bring them around slowly. And over the period of about a week, totally fixed it. Dog was a fine puppy, no problems whatsoever ever at all. That was probably a year ago, and that puppy had no issues whatsoever after that. Okay. Somebody Road says, stop giving out information for people who are breeding mongrels. There was somebody who'd wanted to breed a cockapoo. Look, I mean, I give out information to everybody, and I don't differentiate by what you're breeding. I mean, you know, I have no problem personally with people breeding mongrels whatsoever at all. I mean, you know, some of the best dogs out there are Hind 57 dogs because they have really big genetic diversity. So, you know, I don't limit who I send information to based on what they're breeding. So I hope that doesn't offend people. But, no, there's people who don't like pedigree dogs either, for probably better reasons. That's to do with genetic profile that's available. All right. So somebody's asking here about a dog. They want to know if it's an Isabella carrier. So I'll give you the DNA. L4, so that's a fluffy carrier. 8080, that's tan point. Big B, little b, that means it carries a copy of testable chocolate. Little d, that's blue. Big E, little e carries cream. So you could call that an Isabella carrier because that dog can make Isabellas, but I would prefer to call that a blue and tan that carries cream and testable chocolate and fluffy. That's the way I would describe it. Then there's no confusion about what you mean. If you say to somebody, I've got an Isabella carrier, it could be one copy of blue, one copy of B, two copies of B, one copy of blue. You know, you just don't know. Much better to describe it the way that it actually is. Somebody talking about they did an AI themselves and the AKC wants a letter. So the answer to this one is that when you do registration on a dog with the AKC, it gives you a choice whether this is chilled semen or a regular mating. I always choose a regular mating. If you do the chilled semen route, you've got lots of paperwork that's got to be signed by both parties. I mean, you can do it, but I just don't worry with it. I just do. I guess that what's going on here is the AKC wants to make sure that the dog that is being bred, the dogs that are being bred are actually the right dogs. So they're worried that it's semen that's been maybe shipped, and is it actually that dog? I mean, I think it's ridiculous because, look, if somebody wants to cheat, they're going to cheat, and if they cheat, they get caught out with DNA down the road. So I don't see why they even make this requirement. I just do it as a regular AI. I never had a problem with it. Somebody's asking about breeding two dogs that have the same daddy. No, not crazy about it. So you've lost quite a bit of your genetic profile. You've lost 25% of your genetic profile. So I'm not crazy about that, but people do it, especially people who are in the show ring, and AKC has no issues with this whatsoever at all. It's just a genetic thing, and you've got the possibility of double recessive genes biting you in the butt and having a puppy with a real problem. So you lost 25% of your breeding coefficient, so not crazy about that. Ken bought a progesterone machine and I think an incubator, and he said he had great service from us, and he called up support and talked to our people, and everybody was very friendly and nice. Well, good. When you call us up, you don't get a recorded message. You don't, you know, either we're there and we're gonna answer the phone right there and then, which is the majority of the time, or we're on the phone, or maybe it's after hours, then we get back to you. But typically, now, even the after hours stuff, typically we get back to you that day. I can't guarantee that because it depends on who you're calling. If you call me about a question and I don't answer, almost always I'll be calling you back within 30 minutes. Certainly that day. But I mean, well, I say certainly. I mean, we make every effort to answer every call, regardless of what it is, as soon as we reasonably can. And there's multiple numbers to call, by the way. And if you call me and I don't answer the phone, you're going to get a recorded message that says, here's another number, two more numbers that you can call, depending on what you're after. Someone's asking about, they've got a dog with light cream points versus tan points, and they want to know why. So let's talk about tan points for a moment. What affects tan points? Well, there's the A, on the A locus, you've got AT-AT, that makes for nice tan points. ATA also makes tan points, they tend to be more orange in color. And then it's modified by the intensity gene and whether cream is present. If you've got a dog that's AT-AT that also has a copy of cream, then they tend to get very light tan points. Because you've got two copies of cream, it'd be a cream dog, you wouldn't even see the tan points at all. They're there, you just can't see them because it's all the same color. And if you've got two copies of intensity, that also tends to lighten up the tan points so they can be very white. I like that look myself. Somebody's asking about a video on silent heat. I've done a number of videos on this. Just go into this channel and do a search on silent. I think you'll find what you're looking for. Somebody's asking if it's okay to breed a fluffy to a fluffy, or will I have genetic problems? Kind of like breeding a merle to a merle. No, you can absolutely breed a fluffy to a fluffy. We do it all the time. And what you get, of course, is a fluffy to a fluffy. You get an entire litter of fluffy doggies. If you breed a fluffy to a fluffy carrier, you get half fluffies and half fluffy carriers. If you breed a fluffy carrier to a fluffy carrier, you get 1/4 full fluffies, 1/2 fluffy carriers, and 1/4 nothing to do with fluffy whatsoever. In all those circumstances, there's not anything to get worried about there. I would say this though, the only thing that I would get concerned about on the fluffy front is the genetic pool is not as big as it is for the non-fluffy dogs, but it's getting there in a hurry though. So because of that, you know, the choice of some of the dogs tend to be a bit big and lanky and not, you know, not what I would call quality structure. But that's not a health issue, that's more of a genetic structure issue. Somebody's saying I was on the RV, I didn't have my seatbelt on. You're exactly right. I had to move over towards the middle because we couldn't get us both on the video at the same time. That's why I did that. But I normally are very good about wearing my seatbelt, and I appreciate when people warn me that I should be wearing it, because you're exactly right. We should all be wearing our seatbelts all the time. I'm not driving right now, so no seatbelts. Here's a good question. They're asking about black and tans. They want to know whether you can get a black and tan or a blue and tan pied dog. Absolutely you can. So remember that these things are all independent of each other. Pied has got nothing to do with blues or chocolates or tan points. Pied stands on its own. So if you've got a dog that's pied, you can have a dog that's pied and blue and tan, or fawn or brindle, or black and tan. All of those things are quite possible if you've got a pied dog. So to get a pied to express, you have to have two copies of pied. It'll be SS. If you've got a single copy of pied, those dogs tend to have a white on their chest. Not always, but most of the time you can tell those dogs because they've got white on their chest. And if you've got a dog that's got a big splash of white on its chest, it does not mean that it necessarily carries pied. But it's, if you've got pied in the parents, you can bet you that's probably where that came from, and that dog's probably a pied carrier. So if you breed a pied to a pied, you get all pied puppies every time. A pied to a pied carrier, you get a litter of half pieds and half not pieds. A pied carrier to a pied carrier, a quarter pieds. A half pied carriers, and a quarter got nothing to do with pied at all. So how do you get a black and tan? Because that's the one that confused me for a long time. So a black and tan dog is a tan dog that has tan points and no brindle. So it can be ATA or AT-AT, and it can't have brindle, and it can't have blue, and it can't have chocolate, and that makes for a black and tan. If it had blue, it'd be a blue and tan. If it had chocolate, it'd be a chocolate and tan. If it had both, it would be a lilac and tan. And if it had a little B version of that, then it would be an Isabella tan. And if it had both versions of chocolate, it'd be a new shade tan. So you can get black and tans, absolutely. I get a lot of questions about this next one, the mucus plug. So what is going on? My dog has dumped some stuff out that looks like snot. And people get very worried. And this can happen as early as 3 or 4 weeks after pregnancy. Typically you don't see it until about 10 days prior to whelp. Sometimes you don't see it at all. But what it looks like is it looks like some snotty stuff. Typically you'll either see it on the bedding or you'll see it hanging off the back end of the dog, and it looks like a big old loogie that's just sitting there. You know, it's about maybe the volume wise a teaspoon or a tablespoonful of kind of gooey looking stuff that's hanging there. And it can be red tinged, it could even be green tinged, but it's unless it's green tinged, which is, I'll talk about that here in a moment. If you just see this snotty thing hanging out there, and maybe it's a bit pinky looking, don't get worried about it at all. It's completely normal. What this is the mucus plug forms at the entrance to the cervix, and so it plugs up this hole with some mucus. And what it does is it stops bacteria getting in there and up the canal to the uterus and infect puppies. So it's basically a protection that nature has taught us to do. And what happens is that cervix slowly dilates, and when it dilates enough, the mucus plug drops out, goes through the vaginal canal, and comes out the back end of the dog. Not anything that you need to get worried with at all. I mean, it's completely normal. Doesn't mean you've got have any troubles. It doesn't mean you should try to put the mucus plug back. It's just a mucus plug. In any of these situations, well, I'll talk about it specifically. If you have a green discharge, this is of a concern because that means you've got placental separation, and depending on how close you are to whelp, it's it may be a big concern. Anytime you get a green discharge, I get concerned about it, especially a lot of green, because it means a placental separation. And the right thing to do in these situations is to get the dog on bed rest as quickly as possible, because with any luck it's a tear, and that tear heals itself. The problem gets to be is if the placenta gets separated from the puppy dies. If the puppy's born within 20 minutes, then it's fine. But if the puppy stays in there like that, the puppy potentially may die because it doesn't any longer have a blood supply from the mum. And when that happens, it can get necrotic, and that can force an early whelp. And I just talked to a lady the other day, 5 puppies, were born 5 days early because of this exact reason. So far 4 of them have died. She's got 1 left, and she's now 2 weeks into this, and the puppy's doing okay, but she's struggling with that puppy a little bit. Now, anytime you've got any problems with a dog and you're not sure what to do, the very first thing you always do is take the dog's temperature. If the temperature is 102 or higher, go to the vet. Don't call me, don't ask me, go to the vet. 102 or higher, vet time. Let's find out what the heck's going on, because that's not normal. That dog may need antibiotics or something else, but a temperature of 102 or higher gets me very concerned, and that needs to be addressed right away. And it doesn't matter whether your dog's in heat, your dog's pregnant, it's a 6-month-old dog. Anytime that you're worried about a dog, the very first thing that you should do, and the very first thing that your vet will do when you take it in there, is take the dog's temperature. And you're quite capable of doing that yourself. Just go get a regular digital thermometer from Walmart for $7. Put a little bit of grease on the end of it, Vaseline, whatever, stick it up the dog's butt, at least that far, at least an inch and a bit, and see what the temperature is. And a temperature of 102, that's of concern. Temperature less than that, probably fine. Normal temperature for a dog's 100.5, it's about normal. Okay, there we go, 12 minutes of your time taken up. Everybody have a great day. Bye, everybody. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate people who subscribe to me. It helps me, encourage me to do more of these videos. But do remember, disclaimer here, I am not a vet. I'm not a licensed medical professional. I'm purely a person who's been breeding dogs for the last couple of decades. Any information that you got from this video, use at your own risk. There's nothing implied here, and certainly this should not be used as a substitute for advice from your veterinarian or your medical professional. I hope you enjoyed the video. Come back for more of them. Bye.